The golden sun painted Earth's sky in warm hues that spring morning in 2157. Crowds gathered in every major city, their eyes turned upward as the massive Arvaxian ship descended through the atmosphere. Its silvery surface caught the sunlight, creating a dazzling display that had children and adults alike shielding their eyes in wonder. In Seoul, 8-year-old Jae's Song clutched her mother's hand, bouncing with excitement as they watched the landing on a massive public screen. Her mother, Dr. Ha-won Song, worked on Earth's most advanced quantum systems, but today she wasn't thinking about science. She was simply a proud parent, watching her daughter's eyes sparkle with joy. The Arvaxians had made first contact 3 months earlier, their signals reaching Earth with promises of peace and cultural exchange. They looked almost beautiful in a strange way. Tall, graceful beings with iridescent skin that shifted colors like oil on water. Their 4 eyes blinked in alternating pairs, and their voices carried musical undertones that made human languages sound like poetry. As weeks passed, the Arvaxians shared stories of their vast confederation of worlds. They spoke of art, music, and scientific wonders that made Earth's greatest achievements seem like child's play. But they showed particular interest in human children, claiming their species held the young in highest regard. Ga had been playing in her school's playground when the selection committee visited. The Arvaxian representatives watched the children, their skin rippling with patterns of gold and blue. When Jae approached them without fear, offering a flower she had picked, they chose her immediately. Such pure innocence, they said, their translator converting their musical tones to words. She will be perfect for the exchange program. The program would bring together children from Earth and young Arvaxians for a series of cultural ceremonies. Ga would be among the first humans to visit an Arvaxian ship, along with 11 other children from around the world. Dr. Song had her doubts, but the global excitement and the extensive security measures promised by both human and Arvaxian authorities eased her concerns. The day of the ceremony arrived with much fanfare. Ga wore her favorite blue dress, her dark hair tied back with ribbons that matched. She hugged her mother goodbye at the transport pad, promising to tell her everything about the alien ship. "I'll make lots of friends," she said, waving as she joined the other children. The first sign that something was wrong came when the human security detail was asked to remain on Earth. "Our ship is sacred space," the Arvaxians explained. "We cannot allow armed outsiders." Their skin rippled with patterns that humans would later learn indicated amusement, though at the time it was mistaken for reverence. Security cameras on the children's badges transmitted everything. The group toured the ship's massive halls, marveling at floating lights and singing crystals. The Arvaxians led them to a grand chamber where they claimed the cultural exchange would take place. The room's walls pulsed with shifting colors, and in its center stood a raised platform surrounded by glowing symbols. Ga stepped forward when invited, her small feet carrying her confidently toward what she thought would be a friendly ceremony. The other children watched, some nervous, others excited. None of them understood what was about to happen. The Arvaxian high speaker raised his arms, his skin blazing with patterns never seen before. "We honor the old ways," he said, his translator making the words sound gentle. "Through sacrifice, we maintain order." Dr. Song, watching through the badge camera feed, screamed as energy beams suddenly surrounded her daughter. Ga's face showed confusion, then fear, then pain. It lasted only seconds, but those seconds would change the course of human history. When the light faded, Jae was gone. The other children began crying, but the Arvaxians remained unmoved. Their skin now displayed patterns of deep satisfaction. The human response was immediate. Transport ships rushed to recover the remaining children. Military vessels, what few Earth had in orbit, moved to defensive positions, but the Arvaxians showed no concern. In an emergency meeting with Earth's leaders, the High Speaker's words would become infamous throughout human space. "The death of one human child is statistically irrelevant. Our customs maintain the balance of 12 galaxies. You should be honored we chose your species to participate." They didn't expect the rage that followed. They didn't understand that humans would burn entire worlds to protect a single child. As the High Speaker left Earth's orbit that day, his ship's sensors missed the massive doors opening in the moon's dark side. He didn't notice the energy signatures of ancient weapons powering up throughout the solar system. The Arvaxians had made a fatal mistake. They thought humanity was young, weak, and unprepared. They never questioned why a species so primitive had developed quantum physics so quickly. They never wondered about the missing decades in human space development, or why Earth's population seemed so calm about first contact. As Dr. Song wept in her empty home that night, holding Jie's favorite stuffed rabbit, she received a call. "Doctor," said a voice she hadn't heard in years, "it's time. Project Centennial is going active. Your daughter's death will not go unanswered." The Arvaxians had killed a human child. In doing so, they had awakened something that had waited silently for decades. Humanity's response would reshape the galaxy. Angry crowds filled the streets of every major city on Earth. The death of Jia's song had awakened something primal in humanity. People who had never met the little girl carried her picture, their voices rising in unified demands for justice. The Arvaxian embassy stood empty, its alien occupants having fled Earth's atmosphere hours after the incident. In Geneva, deep beneath the streets of the old city, the World Council gathered in an emergency session. The chamber looked like something from a previous century. Wood-paneled walls, leather seats, and brass fittings that spoke of Earth's history. But hidden behind these traditional trappings, quantum computers hummed and holographic displays flickered to life. Council leader Daeseong Park stood at the central podium, his weathered face illuminated by the soft blue glow of the displays. The chamber was packed. Every nation had sent their highest representatives, and the tension in the room could be cut with a knife. For 67 years, Park began, his voice steady, "We have prepared for this day, though we hoped it would never come." He pressed a button, and the chamber's lights dimmed. Above the gathered leaders, a hologram sprang to life, showing the solar system in intricate detail. Project Centennial began in 2090, he continued. "When we discovered the crashed ship in the Gobi Desert, we learned two things. We were not alone, and we were hopelessly outmatched." The hologram zoomed in on various points across the solar system, the dark side of the moon, the Martian poles, and several asteroids. At each location, hidden structures pulsed with light. The assembled leaders watched in stunned silence as Park revealed humanity's greatest secret. While the public saw decades of modest space development, small colonies, research stations, and commercial mining operations, something far more significant had been growing in the shadows. "We built in plain sight," Park explained. "Every public space station concealed a military dock. Every mining operation masked a shipyard. The Mars colonies, they sit atop the largest manufacturing complex humanity has ever created." The hologram shifted, showing massive underground facilities. Some were large enough to hold small cities. Within them, rows upon rows of ships waited in darkness. Not the primitive vessels humanity publicly displayed, but warships that incorporated both recovered alien technology and unique human innovations. "How?" demanded the representative from Brazil. "The cost, the resources needed." Park smiled grimly. "Every nation in this room has contributed. Those budget items marked infrastructure development, the tax allocations for deep space research. For 3 generations, we've diverted a fraction of every major project into Centennial." The public accepted the slow pace of space development because they never saw what we were really building. As if on cue, alerts began flashing across the holographic display. Park nodded to his aide, who activated the main screen. Live feeds from across the solar system showed what was happening. On the moon's far side, massive doors were opening in the lunar surface. From the darkness emerged ships that dwarfed anything humanity had publicly acknowledged building. Their hulls were dark, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, making them look like moving pieces of the void. Beneath Mars' ice caps, the ground itself seemed to crack open. Rising from these fissures came vessels that made the council members gasp. They moved with impossible grace for their size, their engines glowing with contained power that defied conventional physics. Throughout the asteroid belt, what had appeared to be ordinary rocks split apart, revealing hidden hangars. From these emerged smaller craft by the hundreds, fighters, destroyers, and support vessels that had waited generations for this moment. The Arvaxians killed GS Song because they thought we were weak. Park's voice cut through the murmurs of astonishment. They believed we were a primitive species that could bully into accepting their barbaric customs. They were wrong. The hologram now showed the full scope of humanity's hidden fleet. Over 1,000 capital ships, each carrying weapons reverse-engineered from that crashed ship and enhanced by decades of secret research. 10,000 smaller vessels, crewed by volunteers who had trained in secret for years. The vote before us is simple, Park said, looking at each council member in turn. Do we activate Sci-Fi? Do we show the galaxy that humanity will not tolerate the murder of our children? One by one, the council members cast their votes. The decision was unanimous. As the voting concluded, Park pressed another button on his podium. Throughout the solar system, crews who had waited years for this moment sprang into action. The fleet's quantum communications network came alive, connecting ships that had never before operated together. Send the message to all commands, Park ordered. Centennial is active. Primary objective: the Arvaxian Confederation must answer for their crimes. Secondary objective: protect all innocent life, regardless of species. As the council session ended, Park received a private message. The Arvaxian High Speaker, learning of the fleet's emergence, was demanding explanations. Park's response was brief. You killed a child. Now you'll learn why humanity spent 70 years preparing for war. Across Earth, people looked up at the night sky, unaware that humanity's greatest secret was awakening. The stars seemed to shift as massive ships moved into position, their crews ready to show the galaxy that humanity had never been as helpless as they pretended to be. The breaking point had been reached. There would be no going back. The old man stood at the window of his underground office, looking at screens that showed the endless rows of sleeping soldiers. Admiral Ki Tai-yun had been just 30 years old when they found the crashed ship in the Gobi Desert. Now his hair had turned white, but his memory of that day remained sharp as ever. The year was 2090, and he had been leading a routine patrol when their instruments detected something strange. At first, they thought it was just another mineral deposit, but the energy readings made no sense. What they found changed everything. A ship of clearly alien origin, its hull design unlike anything humans had imagined. The ship had crashed centuries ago, its crew long dead, but its technology was largely intact. More importantly, its database contained warnings about the galaxy's older civilizations. The Arvaxians were mentioned specifically, a species that demanded child sacrifices from races they encountered, believing it maintained cosmic balance. Within days, the world's major powers had secretly gathered. For the first time in human history, they agreed on something without argument. This information had to stay hidden. They would prepare in secret, building defenses while appearing primitive to any watching eyes. Young Captain Yun found himself in charge of the most ambitious military project in human history. They called it Project Centennial, and its scale was staggering. Hidden bases were built beneath the moon's surface. Vast chambers were carved into Mars' polar ice. Asteroids were hollowed out to become secret shipyards. But the real breakthrough came from studying the alien ship's technology. Its quantum drive revealed new possibilities in physics that human scientists had barely imagined. Its weapons used principles that seemed like magic until Earth's brightest minds decoded them. Most importantly, its defensive systems showed them how to hide their activities from space-based observation. We built 3 fleets, Yoon explained to the holographic recording, documenting the project's history. The public fleet of simple ships that everyone could see. the hidden fleet of advanced warships waiting in secret bases, and the ghost fleet, ships that could bend light around themselves, watching and waiting in plain sight. The biggest challenge had been finding crews. They needed soldiers and pilots willing to enter cryogenic sleep, waiting years or decades for a threat that might never come. Yoon remembered the first volunteers, young men and women who understood they might wake to a completely changed world, or never wake at all. Deep in the Martian facility called Phoenix Nest, row after row of cryogenic chambers stretched into the distance. Each held a volunteer, sleeping in perfect preservation. Their uniforms bore no rank or nation. They were humanity's guardians, nothing more. We learned from the alien ship's mistakes. Yoon continued his recording. They relied too heavily on automation. We combined their technology with human intuition. Every ship in our fleet has both AI systems and human crew. The AIs handle the complex calculations, but humans make the crucial decisions. The Admiral walked through the facility's main research lab, where scientists worked on improving the alien technology. They had taken the quantum weapons and made them more efficient. They had studied the shield systems and found ways to make them stronger. Most importantly, they had kept everything hidden from the public eye. The hardest part was the deception. Yoon admitted to the recording. Every public space project had to show just enough progress to seem natural. We couldn't let anyone suspect we were advancing faster than we should. Even as we built ships that could cross the solar system in days, we pretended our best vessels took months for the same journey. In another section of the facility, automated factories worked tirelessly. They produced components that, when assembled, created weapons powerful enough to destroy planets. But they did it quietly, hidden beneath the cover story of mining operations and scientific research. Yoon remembered the day they completed the first true warship of the hidden fleet. They had named it Silent Guard, and it represented everything they had learned. Its hull could absorb or bend light, making it nearly invisible. Its quantum drives could cross vast distances without leaving traditional engine signatures. Its weapons combined alien principles with human creativity in ways that still amazed him. "We built all this," he said, gesturing at the vast underground complex, hoping we would never need it. Every year that passed without alien contact was another year to improve, to build, to prepare. We became the guardians who watched in silence, protecting a humanity that never knew it needed protection. Now, decades later, as the sleeping soldiers began to wake, Yoon felt a mix of sadness and determination. The death of one little girl had set in motion everything they had prepared for. The Silent Guard would be silent no more. "We spent 70 years building this fleet," he concluded his recording. "Now we'll show the galaxy why. May the Arvaxians realize what they've awakened before it's too late." In orbit above Mars, the first of the Ghost Fleet ships deactivated their camouflage systems. They had been there all along, watching and waiting. Now they would join their sisters rising from secret bases across the solar system. Humanity's long vigil was ending, and the real work was about to begin. Fleet Admiral Sun Mi Kang stood on the bridge of her flagship, the HSS Retribution, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the fleet come to life. The image of her granddaughter Ga stayed fixed in her mind, fueling the cold anger that had replaced her initial grief. The massive viewscreen showed hundreds of ships powering up their dark matter cores. Each vessel pulsed with blue-white energy as systems that had slept for decades roared to full readiness. The sight would have been beautiful if not for the circumstances that awakened them. "All ships reporting ready, Admiral," her executive officer announced. "Dark matter cores at full power. Quantum weapon systems online. The fleet awaits your orders." Kang nodded, her silver hair catching the light from the tactical displays. She had been in cryo-sleep when the alert came, dreaming of teaching Ga about the stars. Instead, she woke to news of her granddaughter's murder. "Open fleet-wide communications," she commanded. As the channel activated, she addressed the 1,000 ships under her command. "This is Fleet Admiral Kang. For 70 years, we waited in silence, We watched as humanity played the role of primitive newcomers to space. That deception ends today. Across the fleet, crews who had just awakened from cryosleep listened to their commander's words. Many had children or grandchildren of their own now. All of them understood the rage in their admiral's voice. The Arvaxians believe they can sacrifice our children without consequences. They think we are weak, primitive, defenseless. We will show them how wrong they are. She paused, letting her words sink in. But remember, we are not barbarians. Target only military assets. Protect civilian populations. Show them humanity's power, but also our mercy. The first test of the fleet's capabilities came sooner than expected. An Arvaxian battle group, consisting of 5 of their most powerful warships, dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Jupiter. They had come to educate humanity about their place in the galaxy. Kang dispatched a single ship to meet them. The HSS Vigilant, commanded by Captain Min-Ho Lee, moved into position. Its dark hull absorbed nearby starlight, making it seem like a moving shadow against space. The Arvaxian commander's transmission dripped with contempt. "One ship. You insult us with this primitive vessel. Our smallest weapon cold." Captain Lee cut the transmission. "Weapons officer, target their engines and weapon systems. Minimal collateral damage." The Vigilant's quantum weapons powered up. These weren't the simple lasers or plasma weapons the Arvaxians expected. These were tools that could bend space itself, creating localized singularities that would tear enemy ships apart at the atomic level. The first Arvaxian ship never had time to raise its shields. A quantum lance struck its engine core, causing it to implode. The second and third ships managed to fire their weapons, but the Vigilant's dark matter shields absorbed the energy without strain. "They're trying to retreat," the tactical officer reported. "Targeting systems ready for final strikes." Captain Lee nodded. "End it." The Vigilant's main weapon array fired in perfect sequence. Space itself seemed to twist around the remaining Arvaxian ships. Their hulls crumpled inward as localized gravity fields increased exponentially. In seconds, 3 more ships vanished from existence. The entire engagement lasted 3 minutes and 4 seconds. Back on the Retribution, Admiral Kang watched the sensor data with grim satisfaction. "Send the recording to the Arvaxian High Command," she ordered. "Add this message. This was 1 ship. We have 1,000 more. End your barbaric practices, or we will end them for you." The Arvaxian response came within hours. Their high speaker, skin now pulsing with patterns indicating fear, demanded to know how humanity had acquired such technology. How had they hidden it for so long? Kang's reply was simple. "When you threatened our children, we prepared. For 70 years, we prepared. Now you face the consequences." Throughout the solar system, more ships emerged from hiding. Some decloaked from their positions near Earth's moon. Others rose from Mars' polar caps, their massive forms casting shadows on the red planet's surface. In the asteroid belt, entire rocks revealed themselves to be disguised warships. The sight of humanity's true military might send shockwaves through the Arvaxian Confederation. Their long-held belief in their technological superiority crumbled. Reports came in of panic among their military leadership. "Set course for Arvaxian space," Kang commanded her fleet. "Formation Delta. Let them see us coming. Let them understand that every ship, every weapon, every soldier in this fleet exists because they and others like them threatened our children." As the 1,000 ships of humanity's hidden fleet moved into position, Admiral Kang looked at a photo of GA on her personal display. "We hid our strength for 70 years. Little one," she whispered, "we won't hide anymore. The galaxy will learn that humanity protects its children, no matter the cost." The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving the solar system behind. Humanity's time of pretending to be weak was over. The giants had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same. The storm of humanity's vengeance swept through Arvaxian space with unstoppable force. Admiral Kang watched from the bridge of the HSS Retribution as another Arvaxian military base crumbled under precisely targeted quantum strikes. Her fleet had been systematically dismantling the Empire's military might for 2 weeks, yet each victory brought new horrors to light. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, voice shaking. "We're receiving distress signals from the planet's surface. They're not Arvaxian." The signals came from deep underground bunkers, hidden beneath the Arvaxian military installations. As human forces secured the area, they discovered vast chambers filled with prisoners from dozens of species. Some looked almost human, others completely alien, but all showed signs of long-term captivity. Among the rescued was a small, crystalline being who introduced herself as Lyra. Her translucent form shimmered as she told her people's story to Admiral Kang. The Arvaxians had come to their world 5 cycles ago, demanding tribute in the form of children. Those who refused watched their cities burn. "We thought we were alone," Lyra said, her crystalline form dimming with sorrow. "They told each world that we were the only ones who had to pay such tribute, that it was a special honor." Similar stories emerged from every world the human fleet liberated. On a gas giant's mining colony, tentacled beings called the Nyrics shared how they had hidden their younglings in the planet's deep storms, only to have the Arvaxians poison the atmosphere until they surrendered them. The HSS Vigilant, now famous for its first victory, discovered an entire moon converted into a prison complex. Captain Lee led the liberation personally, his teams fighting through Arvaxian security forces to reach the detention levels. What they found haunted even veteran soldiers. Beings of all species kept in stasis, waiting to be processed in the Arvaxians' sacrificial ceremonies. "Search every facility," Admiral Kang ordered her fleet. "Save everyone you can. Document everything you find. The galaxy must know the truth." The truth proved worse than anyone imagined. The Arvaxians hadn't just been taking tribute. They had been using the harvested life force of children to power their technology. Each sacrifice fed energy into massive storage systems, powering their ships and cities with stolen innocence. On the prison world of Nexus 6, human forces found the processing centers. The Arvaxians fought desperately to defend these facilities, but they hadn't built their defenses to withstand humanity's advanced weapons. When the dust settled, the liberators found records going back centuries. "Billions," whispered Admiral Kang, reading the reports in her quarters. "They sacrificed billions of children over the centuries." She looked at Jae's photo, understanding now that her granddaughter's death had exposed an atrocity beyond imagination. The liberated species joined humanity's crusade. The Nyrics provided their knowledge of Arvaxian shipping routes. The crystalline people shared their understanding of Arvaxian psychology. Each freed world added their strength to the growing alliance. During the battle for the Arvaxian core worlds, their High Speaker tried one final time to justify their actions. The sacrifices maintained the balance. Without them, chaos will. Admiral Kang cut the transmission mid-sentence. The Retribution's main guns fired, turning the Speaker's fortress into atomic dust. As the structure collapsed, hundreds of imprisoned children of various species emerged from its depths, led to safety by human rescue teams. "Send word to all ships," Kang commanded. "New primary objective: find and free every child still in Arvaxian custody. Secondary objective: shut down their power systems. Let them live without their stolen energy." The liberation grew beyond a military campaign. Human medical ships arrived to treat the survivors. Engineering teams helped rebuild destroyed infrastructure. Diplomatic corps worked to unite the freed species into a coalition. On a garden world near the edge of Arvaxian space, they found an intact ritual chamber. Admiral Kang walked its halls personally, her boots echoing on floors that had seen countless innocents led to their deaths. In the central chamber, she stopped before the elevated platform where Jae had died. "Order all ships to hold position," she commanded. "I want every liberated species to send representatives here." They came from across the sector, crystalline beings, gaseous forms, humanoids, and creatures that defied description. All had lost children to the Arvaxians. All had suffered in silence, thinking they were alone. "Here is where my granddaughter died," Kang told the gathering. Here is where the Arvaxians' true nature was exposed. We will build a memorial on this spot, not just for GI, but for every child they took from us all. The war transformed from vengeance into revolution. Species that had been enemies under Arvaxian rule found common cause. Ancient hatreds fell away as they realized they had all been victims of the same horror. As the human fleet continued its advance, they no longer fought alone. Ships of a dozen designs now flew alongside them. Each victory freed more allies. Each liberation strengthened their resolve. The storm that began with one child's death had become a cleansing fire, burning away centuries of tyranny and sacrifice. Humanity had awakened not just their own giants, but the sleeping strength of an entire galaxy. Commander Yin-Ji Choi stood before the gathered representatives of 12 alien species in the converted Grand Hall of a former Arvaxian temple. The massive chamber, once used for their dark rituals, now served as a meeting place for the newly formed alliance of free worlds. Screens around the room showed real-time footage of uprisings across Arvaxian space. On dozens of worlds, oppressed populations had risen against their former masters. The sight of human warships in orbit gave them the courage to finally fight back. The Arvaxians offer us a ceasefire, Choi announced to the assembly, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. They promised to reduce their tribute demands by half. They offer trade rights, technology sharing, and recognition of limited autonomy for all member worlds. A ripple of angry murmurs swept through the gathered aliens. The Nerix representative, his tentacles darkening with emotion, rose to speak. Half. They offer to murder half as many children and expect us to be grateful. Choi nodded in agreement. Admiral Kang's response was simple. Unconditional surrender. Nothing less. On the main screen, footage showed the latest liberation. Human quantum weapons carved precision strikes into Arvaxian military bases, while ground forces, now including troops from multiple species, evacuated civilians. The Arvaxians had hidden their detention centers among civilian populations, thinking it would protect them. They hadn't counted on humanity's surgical precision in warfare. We found another processing facility, reported Captain Minho Lee via quantum link. His face looked drawn, haunted. 3,000 children in stasis, different species, different worlds, all waiting to be. He couldn't finish the sentence. Commander Choi turned to the crystalline representative. Your people can care for the crystal-based species. We have prepared healing chambers, the crystalline being chimed. Our best healers stand ready. Similar offers came from other representatives. Species that had been enemies under Arvaxian rule now worked together to save each other's children. The shared horror of what they discovered united them more strongly than any treaty. In orbit above the Arvaxian homeworld, Admiral Kang received another desperate message from their ruling council. They offered to surrender 3/4 of their territory, to pay reparations, to allow oversight of their cultural practices. Send them the same response as before, she ordered. Unconditional surrender, full disclosure of all facilities, complete dismantling of their sacrificial technology. Nothing less will be accepted. The liberation forces had learned the terrible truth behind the Arvaxians' power. Their entire civilization ran on energy harvested from sacrificed children. They believed the purity of young lives generated the most potent energy, powering their ships, their cities, their weapons. Commander Choi led a diplomatic mission to another freed world, where insectoid beings called the Sith showed her vast underground chambers where they had hidden their young for generations. We lost many to starvation. The Sith leader clicked. But better that than the harvesters. The resistance grew stronger each day. Arvaxian military units began defecting, especially younger officers who had never fully accepted their society's dark bargain. They brought with them critical intelligence about hidden facilities and secret routes. In her quarters, Choi reviewed the latest reports. The number of rescued children had passed 50,000. Each one represented a family reunited, a future restored. But the records they captured showed millions more had been lost over the centuries. Commander, her aide interrupted. The Arvaxian High Council is broadcasting on all frequencies. On screen, the Arvaxian leaders appeared, their skin patterns showing fear and desperation. They announced their intention to maintain power through any means necessary. As proof, they revealed they held thousands more children hostage. The response came not from humanity, but from their own people. Across Arvaxian space, their own population rose up in revolt. Young Arvaxians, sickened by the truth of their society, turned against the old guard. Ships refused orders. Military bases surrendered to liberation forces. This is what they feared most. Choi told the Alliance Council, "Not our weapons, not our ships, but the truth." Their own people learning what was done in their name. The final push began. Human warships, now joined by vessels of a dozen liberated species, moved on the Arvaxian capital. Their defense fleet, plagued by defections and internal sabotage, crumbled quickly. Commander Choi led the diplomatic team that accepted the final surrender. In the same chamber where their High Council had once ordered the deaths of countless children, the Arvaxian leadership signed their unconditional surrender. "The terms are absolute," Choi stated, her voice firm. "Every facility revealed, every record opened, every child in your custody freed. Your energy systems will be converted to standard fusion technology provided by Earth." As she spoke, teams were already moving throughout the capital, freeing prisoners and securing records. The liberation that began with Jai Song's death had grown into something unprecedented, a revolution that united dozens of species in common cause. The Arvaxian Empire, built on centuries of stolen innocence, fell not to a superior military force, but to the combined will of its victims. Commander Choi looked out over the capital city, where ships from Earth flew alongside vessels of the newly freed species, and knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy would never return to what it was. Something new was being born from the ashes of the old order, founded not on sacrifice and fear, but on the shared determination that no child would ever again be taken for another's power. The spring breeze carried the scent of alien flowers across the memorial garden, their colors shifting in ways Earth plants never could. Dr. Hao Wen-song stood before the towering statue of her daughter Jia, watching as children of a dozen species played in the gardens below. 5 years had passed since the war ended, but the change it brought to the galaxy still amazed her. The statue caught the light of 2 suns. This colony world circled a binary star system. Jia's bronze form reached forever toward the stars, her expression one of wonder and hope. Around the statue's base, flags of the freed species fluttered in the wind, the crystalline being's prismatic banner, the Nyrix's swirling symbol, the geometric patterns of the Xith, and 9 others, including humanity's own flag. "The children love this place," said a musical voice beside her. Ambassador Lyra's crystalline form sparkled in the dual sunlight. Once a prisoner of the Arvaxians, she now represented her people in the interstellar Concordat. "They come from all over the galaxy to play in these gardens." Below them, a young Nyrix child used its tentacles to help a human boy climb a tree. Nearby, crystalline younglings taught their unique songs to a group of Sith larvae. The scene would have been impossible just a few years ago. The Concordat headquarters in Seoul had become the heart of a new galactic civilization. In its chambers, representatives from all species, including reformed Arvaxian worlds, worked together to build a lasting peace. The massive building incorporated architectural elements from every member species, creating a stunning symbol of unity. Admiral Kang, now Supreme Commander of the Concordat Defense Force, had ensured that humanity's hidden fleet became a shield for all peaceful species. Their ships patrolled trade routes, rescued stranded vessels, and stood ready to prevent any return to the old ways. "Mother," a small voice called. Dr. Song turned to see a young Arvaxian girl running toward her. Mai Ling, her adopted daughter, had been among the last children rescued from the processing facilities. Like many young Arvaxians, she had been given a human name to mark her new beginning. Mai Ling's skin patterns showed joy as she hugged her human mother. The sight still brought tears to many who witnessed it. An Arvaxian child, freely expressing love instead of being raised to believe in sacrifice. The memorial garden had become more than a monument. It housed the galaxy's largest orphanage, caring for children of all species who had lost their families to the old regime. Dr. Song had founded it, turning her grief into a mission to ensure no child would ever feel unwanted again. The last conversion was completed today. Ambassador Lyra announced. The final Arvaxian world has switched from sacrifice-based power to fusion technology. The old energy chambers have been transformed into museums and memorial sites. The transformation of Arvaxian society had been remarkable. Young Arvaxians, horrified by their civilization's true history, had embraced change with passionate dedication. They worked tirelessly to make amends, often adopting orphaned children of other species. In orbit above the colony, ships of the Defense Force floated like silent guardians. Their crews now included members of all species, working together to protect the peace. The vast fleet that had hidden for 70 years now served openly as peacekeepers. Jai would have loved this, Dr. Song said softly, watching the playing children. She always wanted to make friends with everyone she met. The garden's paths were lined with plaques, each telling the story of a child lost to the old regime. But they also told stories of hope, of rescued children, of families reunited, of new families formed across species boundaries. GA's story held the central place, the spark that had lit a galaxy-changing fire. As evening approached, lights came on throughout the garden. They were powered by clean fusion reactors, a pointed reminder that civilization didn't need to feed on innocent lives to advance. The children began heading home, to houses where humans lived next door to Nerix, where crystalline beings shared spaces with Sith, where former enemies had become family. The inscription at the statue's base glowed softly, for GI, and for all the children who will now reach the stars in peace. Below it, children had left toys, drawings, and flowers from 100 worlds, offerings of thanks to the little girl whose death had freed them all. Dr. Song touched the statue's base one last time before leaving. Tomorrow would bring more work, more children to help, more wounds to heal, more bridges to build between species. But tonight, under the light of two suns, she could take comfort in knowing that her daughter's death had not been in vain. The galaxy had changed forever, and at its heart, a garden bloomed where children of all species played together beneath the stars that belonged to them all.